Hi guys, just having a thought about the next unit, which is the Year 11 statistics unit. I was looking back at some of the data from previous years, and I was thinking, how can the students represent things like height and weight, so numerical continuous data, the length of your foot, various other things, hand span, got quite a lot of continuous data in here. How can we see the distribution of that data? How can the students view that data? Obviously, they can use bivariate analysis quite easily using Excel, and so they can use it in that way. But how can they just simply compare, say, for example, the distribution of male handspans compared to the distribution of female handspans, or something like that? So obviously, I'm talking about a histogram. Um, I don't know. We've all probably got our own little histogram software that we use. So here's one I use quite a lot. Lets you choose a number of classes you want and stuff like that. You can stick in you just copy and paste your data in here. Where's it gone? I can't find it. But yeah, you get the idea. You just literally copy and paste your column of data, and then it arranges the data into groups. There's also this box plot grapher that I've used before. Again, it's pretty ugly. You get something. I can't. One just drove me. You get something pretty ugly from that. And this is the site here. It's some weird domain name at the minute. I'll change that when we get going. I'll change that if it's useful. If we think this is something to use. Okay, so you first of all have to register. So you just click on register. Create your own username. At the minute, I can't. There's no retrieval for this, so just pick something simple like some student or something like that. Email address, make it look vaguely like an email address using @sign and a .com. There is some checking on there. Your password, use something that it looks like a password, so it's a mixture of letters and numbers, and it's at least 8 long, because it will check for that as well. Click register, and then it should just log you in automatically if that's successful. If it's not, it'll say, oh, your passwords didn't match or something like that. Okay, so we get to this bit now. So now I was thinking what we can do is if the students, for example, wanted to compare, say, handspans, okay, they could copy and paste this column or any columns that they wanted and create maybe something like create uh, a new form like this, and then they could export that form or download it as a CSV file. So that file there, I've already done that. So they would come here. So they've got their CSV, they've got the data that they want to analyze in the columns in a CSV file. So they're going to upload it. I've already made some here, some weights data of males and females. Test weights, just give it a name so you don't forget it. Okay, well, misspelled it, doesn't matter. Click upload, and then it should appear here. There it is. So then now we select this and we move on to the next page. And what it does is it will draw. So there's the original data there. There's the data columns. You can hide that by checking this, and it produces so we had a male weight here and a female weight. So it produces the 5-number summary of each of them. It produces the mean and the standard deviation. Tells you how many are in each group. So we've got 100 in each group. I just made this data up. It's just normally distributed data. It also then produces frequency tables, so it arranges them into frequency tables. Now, you can change a number of groups. I'll show you how to do that in a moment. And pause a second. So here's the tables, the frequency tables for the male and the female. Students can actually take this table and they could copy and paste it into a spreadsheet like that, and then they could reformat that to how they wanted. Or they could screenshot it, I guess. Okay, so then it draws a histogram. So this is the histogram for the male weights. Okay, so it's based on this frequency table here. And we can customize this, so I might change this to something just briefly. Histo shows male weights or something. X label weight in kilograms. X steps. That's the steps along the bottom here. 1 looks fine. The x-axis minimum, I'm going to maybe give a bit of padding there. Start at 55, end at 68. I'll keep it red. The y steps, that's fine at 2. I'll put the maximum at 18 there, just to keep it multiples of 2. The start group, that's where I'm going to start my groups. Now, I wanted my groups to start and finish on nice whole numbers there. So I'm going to start at, say, 56 up to the maximum. 56, 62, 56 to 62. No, sorry, the maximum 68. So 68. So if I call that 68 there, so I'm spanning 12 kilograms across from my minimum, my starting point to my end point is 12 kilograms. So 12 groups sounds about right there. So if I refresh that, now we'll see the histogram reflecting that data, or those changes. So there it is. This table also has changed accordingly as well. Probably can't tell, but it has. So there it is. Okay. Now they could right click that and save that image. So they've got a histogram. It also draws the cumulative frequency curves. So they can customize that as they want. Likewise with the box plots. This is the female. So those 3 plots there are all for the male one. Now we're into the female weights. Again, it's going to be the same sort of thing there. So we could maybe change this, make it similar, 55, 68, 56, 68. So we try and take the female one and maybe go something like start at 58, start group, 40 up to 58, and maybe call that 10 groups. Maybe I'm going to color this one blue, refresh. So we'll refresh that. So now we have a nice blue histogram. There it is. Now, the best bit, or the bit I really quite like, is you can now try and combine these charts. So here's my 6 charts. I've got the histogram, cumulative frequency, and box plot for the males, and I've got the same 3 charts for the females. So I could say combine the 2 histograms. Click there, click combine. And then it shows them on the same graph. It will show this little bit of overlap here. So the students can directly compare the female, or the female weights and the male weights. They can talk about the distribution. There's very little customization available for this combination. So it will have the labels on the y-axis and the x-axis as well. Actually, if I mustn't have labeled the x-axis for this weight. I think if you label them both, it will pick the. If not, there's the first bug, because I'm obviously hoping that you're going to spot some bugs here. So let's just check that again, the 2 histograms. Yeah, so it will. So as long as you label both of them, it will show that x-axis there. The title, the students could just, again, right-click, save image, and put their own title on that. Another thing they could do is, these are the rules for combining. So they could combine all 3 from the same distribution, and it will show the histogram, the box plot, and the cumulative frequency. It often works better, I feel, that if you change the colors. So let's maybe call that green and call this one blue. You just have to refresh those before you combine them. So then call this one green. So then they can combine those 3. There we are. You get the double axis, cumulative frequency on the right-hand side, the frequency on the left-hand side. So there's a nice sort of link there. They can see, I mean, for example, there's a low amount of frequency here, so we see the curve flattening and off here. But it's good for them to talk about the distribution there, get all 3 graphs on the same thing. It looks nice. And they could compare, say, 2 cumulative frequency plots, just combine those. They might want to talk about that. And of course, they can compare 2 box plots as well. Okay. You can have up to 3 columns of data. So when you test it, maybe you could test it with 3 columns, create your own 3 columns of data and test this out and make sure it works. You obviously can do it with one as well. So it's 1, 2, or 3 columns of data. And really what I'd like you to do, if you don't mind, is to just play around with it, spot any flaws, any problems, make any suggestions of how I can improve it. And hopefully we can get this out for the kids and it'll make their life a bit easier. If it does crash, this is what it'll look like. I know this is a known crash. If I just reload this page, it should crash. So if it does crash, you'll get this page. And if you could just do me a favor and click on here, switch to copy and paste view, and then just send me that, copy and paste that information there, and just a brief explanation of what you were trying to do, then I can hopefully figure out why it crashed. Okay, so please play around with it and let me know if you think it's good and you think it's worth pursuing for the kids. The idea being, of course, that we have loads of ways of displaying bivariate data using Excel or whatever, and of course we can use GeoGebra and stuff like that to draw histograms and box plots, but it's just more fiddly. Like this way, you just change the number of groups here, and then the number of groups automatically updates. It's just easier to do rather than trying to do it in a more kind of in a more restrictive way.